Hola, this is Matt Singleton, and welcome to Bible. It's Matt. Alright, so today I checked out some videos by a fella named Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he was talking about UFOs. He's an astrophysicist and very thoroughgoing evolutionist. I don't know if he's necessarily an atheist or not. I think he is. You know, you see a bunch of different videos and they scream, and you kind of pick up something here and there. But anyhow, let me quote a little scripture for you, just to have a good memory verse. Job 38, verse 5. No, we'll say verse 6. Verse 6 and 7. He says, "Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy." Amen. A lot of times, when I talk about this subject, and we're dealing with science, you see, there is science, what we know as empirical study, and then there's also science, the atheistic evolutionary religion. Okay, and they have this bait and switch kind of ploy that they'll pull on you. They'll say, "Well, you don't believe in science. You could believe it. You could set up some facts and show them some facts and figures and stuff," and they say, "You don't know science." What are they saying? Well, they're saying you're disobeying their religion. Okay, and it's all about a confidence in the knowledge that we have. Now, in this video, Neil, I guess I'll just cut it for short. Neil Tyson is talking about the possibility of aliens, and he figures that if the aliens are out there and stuff like that, that they probably just assume that we are unintelligent, because he's kind of looking at things in scale. He figures, well, if you compare us to the worms and stuff like that. Worms have no technology, and we, of course, were able to make it to the moon. And he would kind of also illustrate that. He said something about, he said we're from the chimpanzee, and, if you compare that 1% difference, then, the next percentage point is, how advanced are these aliens? Because they would have had to traverse, many light years to get here, and so you're talking about millions and millions and millions and millions of miles away, and how much technology is required to do that. Now let me kind of go over some notes I wrote here. One thing is that he said, do they exist? He said, well, when we start talking about UFOs, we're talking about, what's the first word? Unidentified. Somebody can see something in the sky. That's the observation, but who knows what it is? Why is it necessarily that it's, aliens from thousands of light years away? Well, the whole idea of aliens thousands of light years away is really a connecting point when they start to come up with their religion, and it's really bringing us back into a full-blown polytheistic paganism. Okay? What they're doing is that these beings, to get from that star over to here, would be superpowered. So basically, if they have superpowers, they're gods, and that's really kind of how it works out. I mean, you just watch Indiana Jones and the Temple of the Crystal Skull or something like that. I mean, these ideas are working themselves out from evolution back into paganism, and that's not something new. The early pagans had a view of creation that was evolutionary. Now, it wasn't atheistic. They realized that what we call the materialistic worldview doesn't make a lot of sense. Because how do we know that everything is the same material? Now, Tyson actually goes along with materialism pretty hardcore. He says, we know what's inside these stars, we know the way they are, and therefore they... we know the elements that are involved. Well, that's the funny part about it. He's contradicting something he says when he talks about the UFOs. You see, we observe that the galaxies are going away. That's great. But we didn't really observe everything that happened beforehand to get there. So our interpretations are kind of limited. See, he called it in this video. In this video he had about the UFOs, he said that you're arguing from ignorance. And he said that basically when you're working out science, that you're on the very edge. And this is the truth. You're on the very edge of what is knowledge and what is ignorance. You know, what you know and what you don't know. The science has to work on the edge of that. You know, figure everything that we can know. And we're trying to pierce through into what we don't know. But that, at some point, there's a wall there. You know, you have to stop where your observation is. So, you know, this is one thing I point out is like, you know, nobody ever witnessed the Big Bang. Nobody's observed the Big Bang. Okay? Just as much as, you know, well, I mean, people have claimed to observe UFOs, but all they're observing is something going on. And he would say that, you know, eyewitness evidence is very weak evidence. He says the weakest form of evidence. Now, that's really kind of interesting on a couple levels. I mean, for one thing, you know, as I said, we talk about the Big Bang. Well, nobody observed the Big Bang. You know, and he's saying, well, you know, we've seen these stars and, you know, we've seen these explosions. He didn't actually see the stars explode, I don't think. But basically, you know, we see all these gas clouds and they're going to make more stars. Gas does not implode. When you see gas, it floats away. That's why it's gas. How does gas all of a sudden shrink and pressurize itself so much to where atoms are merged together? Just because it's gas? You know, it's going to create stars, you know, in fusion. It's very interesting. But basically, eyewitness, guess what? Alright? Your information that you get from a microscope or a telescope, you know, even radar, it's all eyewitnessed. Wouldn't even matter unless you could see it with your eyes. So, you know, let's say if you're doing some radio scans, let's say it picks up something, if you miss it with your eyes, you know, if you fail to record it, then it's not going to be there. Okay? It's only what you observed with your eyewitness. So, empiricism, once again, has its problems. The building block of all, and I'm not just talking about your eyes, but your, you know, sensation and all your senses, okay? All of empiricism is built on that sandy foundation. Okay, just like all of evolution is built on a sandy foundation, assuming that dirt and a couple other elements just come together and then all of a sudden, poof, we got cells and poof, we got evolution and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, it's like we can, you know, there is no beginning, so we can just alter time any time we want to. Even mathematics, I mean, the other side of empiricism is when you start getting all these measurements together. How do you know what a measurement is? How do you know what a number is? Numbers are things that are in your mind, okay? Now, you may qualify something as numbers. I may look at all these little sticks right here and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but somebody else might say 478, 479, 484. You see, it's all in your mind. It's what you're qualifying, okay? It's not the materialistic nature of it. So basically, mathematics is very subjective. You know, when you say, okay, well, this is 1,000 miles out, well, 1,000 miles compared to what? How do you know how far out is? Kind of like if you've ever gone swimming in the ocean, okay? If you go to swim in the ocean, you can only see the edge of the ocean in the sky. But all of a sudden, distance is a little bit harder. I mean, you might have some things like if they had like a little rope or something to connect it. But if you just go out there swimming, you really kind of lose your sense of what distance actually is, and that's the problem. That's what we're measuring against. We're measuring against nothing, because we haven't been out that far. He goes over and he has this little globe the size of a basketball, and it says, well, our space station, compared to a basketball about that size, is only about this far. Okay, so if it's only about that far off the Earth, that's how much hang time we've had. He says we're only going around the block. Okay, how do we know what's really going on? He says if we have the Earth at this scale, then the moon is about 3 rooms down. Okay, and then the Mars is miles away. This is the stuff he says. So, here he is being inconsistent. He wants to get after aliens when he doesn't get after an evolutionary naturalist worldview, because that's what's more popular. Now, when we talk about that, he says, how do we know we're intelligent? He points to Homer Simpson. Well, I think that's pretty intelligent that we create a cartoon. But, you see, the human mind, what do we have to measure it against? He's talking about the exponential upwards, but we don't have aliens. He's even explained that. We don't have aliens. So we can't speculate on aliens. We can speculate on everything else. The human brain is more complex than anything that we've found in this universe. So if the human brain is more complex, then it's safe to say that we are intelligent. And then what about God? If we start talking about, well, here's the things that we don't know, we can't prove, we can't disprove. Obviously, if there is something out there, it has to be beyond us. So, that's God. Just replace the word aliens and you got God. And it kind of makes you wonder, does the atheists, they focus on science to replace God, because otherwise they'd have to realize how big he really is, how powerful he really is. Could he have walked around on Times Square and we not known it? Yeah. Could he have been in Comic-Con? He could have been anywhere. And the angels and the demons, they could be traveling around anywhere and we not know it, because we're not as smart as we think we are. Okay? He said that, basically you would have to prove aliens to him, that you would have to be on the ship and grab a material, maybe like an ashtray or something, and, bring it back to the Earth, sneak it back, and then he'll believe. What is he saying? He's saying that basically aliens, that basically angels, demons, God, they can all be around here and we not know it. So, the entire idea of what I know is the foundation of everything in reality just goes kaput. So I'd like to thank Mr. Tyson for destroying the lies of Western civilization.